Goldman. We've got Menashe Lustig is in the house. Wherever you want.
While you guys are thinking of some questions, I'm going to start things off with, there's no question why one would want to make a horror film steeped in Jewish mythology. There's so much history, there's so much culture, but specifically the Mezek, what drew you to that demon?
So I knew that I really wanted to go deep into kind of Jewish theology and mythology, and Dybbuk's have been done. Like there's Dybbuk boxes and Dybbuk's here and Dybbuk's there, and there's a golem, and that's not so scary. So I had to kind of dig deep into Talmudic literature, and believe it or not, the Mezek is real. It's a real thing. It's a demon that inhabits abandoned places. The Mezek translates as destroyer. Unfortunately, it's not very well described, so I kind of had to envision what this thing would look like and how it would function.
What kind of inspired the look? Where did you draw from?
You know, the most important thing for me for these scares and their effectiveness was to root them in the character. So Dave's character, Mr. Litvak's character, that's actually Ron Cohen, who was Lynn Cohen's husband in the film in real life. The key was, for rooting in the character, it was both of these people could not let go of terrible traumas in their past. So in thinking in that, I thought, well, this would be interesting if the demon somehow represents that in a very physical form with the head turned around backwards, always stuck facing the past, not able to move forward.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's an image that you see in some Christian imagery as well, like Dante's Inferno and some depictions of hell. So very, very compelling stuff. I'd like to hear from the rest of the people in the production if they have any history or familiarity with the concept of the Mezek in their own lives, or never.
We believe that some people who are scared of this, like you have, like, how do you say, melancholia, it hits you.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't afraid of them, you fight them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to fight it, yeah.
When writing this, when commencing production, did you find this location, or did you have to fabricate it? Because it's a pretty scary apartment.
No, we got very, very lucky. This is a real place. This is a real house, and
like downstairs, upstairs, all of
our executive producer's house. In fact, he had bought it. We got incredibly lucky, and
we got it pre-rehab. That's the bottom line. We had to get it pre-rehab.
And an older woman had passed away in the house, and we left it exactly as it was.
Wow.
And then moved in and proceeded to make it more Hasidic. We had a lot of great advisors, associate producers who are here tonight, in terms of like exactly where the mezuzahs would be, exactly the color of the walls, and then make that house into what it needed to be, but all real.
I also want to just call out Liz Tunkel and Michael Uzerski, who both couldn't be here tonight, but Michael did the score that you all heard, which is fantastic. Liz was the production designer who worked with the environment to create the world that you guys just saw with Keith's vision, of course.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the audience? I have a few more, but let's get this started. Right there.
It's clear that Menashe and the writers have some exposure to traditional Judaism, but I'm curious about Keith and Dave. What exposure before making this film do you have to Orthodox Judaism?
Just to clarify, he's the writer and director.
Okay.
And so Dave and I both have very non-Jewish names, but we both are members of the tribe. And so, we each kind of had our own journeys into this. I became more familiar with Judaism. I grew up kind of culturally Jewish, but then started attending shul or synagogue later, and I actually went to a rabbinical school. I'm not a rabbi, but I went to a rabbinical school and I studied, and being a morbid person that I am, I did my dissertation there on monsters in Jewish literature and Jewish theology, so that's where it came from for me.
I want to add something. You could learn from everyone. I grow up Orthodox and everything. I never know what a mazik is. You teach me. So I know the concept, but I didn't know the name is mazik. And I was arguing with him. Mazik, maybe Dibig. He said, Dibig, something else. Oh, I didn't know.
I also learned a lot during the filming of this project about myself as well. You know, I could have easily have been a member of this community if my great-grandparents had a different mindset coming to the United States. And I learned through this project how close I am to this community, and as a result I became a lot closer to my Jewish heritage. I was bar mitzvahed, but I would say I had more trouble learning my lines from my bar mitzvah than I did for this film. I learned how great, I'm sorry, I just saw this for the first time, so I'm still sort of
Dave, you give an incredible performance in this film, and I have some questions about that, but please continue.
You learned Yiddish for this movie.
As far as, you know, do we have any personal experience with the mazik? I think we all have our demons, and every community has their demons, and some communities have more difficult demons to deal with than others. And this is a community that is beautiful and rich with culture, and struggles with problems and issues that many communities struggle with. And so learning about this community and becoming friends with so many wonderful people from this community, it gave me a new outlook and a new way to approach life and a new way to view myself and my past. So it was really an amazing experience for me.
Just to add, a lot of the cast, obviously Menashe's in the community, but the majority of the cast, the folks at the opening scene who were in the Footsteps meeting, the majority, if not all of them, were at one point in the community. Malky, here at the end, was a member of the Hasidic community and has gone into the secular world through Footsteps, but we tried to keep it as authentic as possible in all the casting as well.
And David was so willing to learn every single line to say it the right way, how we say it.
Malky didn't just act in this movie, she also assisted with all of the Jewish art, she taught Dave the accent, she did so much more, and she is an associate producer for Vigil.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions? Yes, right there.
Okay, first of all, I'm a horror movie bitch, and I haven't screamed out loud since like you can't even see it. But
Thank you.
bitch, you probably heard me because I'm a loud hoe. My question was, what was the most difficult or scariest part to film either as an actor or like
Difficult or scariest part to
You
shoot?
know, it depends. Each piece had its own, difficult nature. I'd say the toenail scene was a lot of fun. I should call out our director of photography, Zach Cooperstein, who's somewhere here. There he is, standing up right there. Believe it or not, that's Zach's toe right there. It's very, very hard to peel a toenail off with your foot in some grout, and Zach has childish toes, and so he stepped in and he was able to do that. So that was fun. The whole rising up of under the sheet and sitting up in the blood thing. That was exciting.
I was going to ask you about that effect because I actually love how subtle the effect when Dave embraces the body for it to then, in one shot and fairly seamlessly, like sort of just crumble into a blanket.
Yeah, and all practical. So.
The majority of the movie is entirely practical effects.
Yeah, the majority of it is. It's with that we use the dolly kind of as a hydraulic. We built essentially another stretcher with a sheet on top, and then had a stunt actress underneath there, and the dolly lifted her up under the sheet, and then she sat up, and we had her rigged with blood that would then go off. And then Dave would hug her, and as he hugged her, the hydraulic went down, and so she disappeared out of the sheet.
It's not as simple as he's making it sound.
I just want to take a quick second.
It sounds perfect, right? It sounds like it went flawlessly.
I just want to take a quick second to call out Zach Cooperstein, who shot the movie, which looks incredible, and he has a video called The Climb that also looks incredible, and Brett Bachman.
Brett Bachman, who did Colorado Space.
Yes, you're our editor.
3 movies here. And Juan Campos into the center.
Other questions in the audience? Yes, right over there.
I'm wondering if there's any significance to using the name Litvak for the characters?
Significance to using the name
We're doing a
Litvak.
deep dive here on the Litvak name. This is almost above my pay grade to answer this one. I think Rafi or JD.
It's high irony. Everything in this movie is simple. Litvak is the opposite of a chassid, which is what Mr. and Mrs. Litvak are.
But to clarify, in the Jewish community, in the Orthodox community, Litvak connotates something, but it was purely accidental. That
The way you said it.
I just like the name,
No,
Litvak.
the way you said it, Litvak.
Yes, but it means something within the community.
We could have avoided controversy by changing it, but it's
There are
perfect.
different groups of the community. There's some that are more, that are seen as more academic, and those are called the Litvaks. However, I just like the name Litvak, and so it didn't actually have any meaning until we started working on it. We're like, wait, this is
It's a
funny.
really good question.
We had
That's
so
what we
many
need.
conversations and fights about that, and then everyone agreed that Litvak works. So
It's my last name, so I was curious.
So we've got a Litvak here.
Dave, I was so taken by your performance in this film, and there's this, the physicality of the sequence in which your bones are breaking. How did you prepare for that sequence?
Well, the first night that I met Zach, actually, he and Keith were walking the house, and they were looking at the street outside the house where we filmed that. And so we began to look at how much space we had, and we sort of reverse engineered it in that Keith told me, well, by the time you get to this area of the sidewalk, you have to be completely crippled. And so we had been discussing the hand. It began with the hand. And then it was just, I spent a lot of time walking around and then just trying to figure out what would go next. And we designed the body parts to fall apart in a specific sequence. And I practiced that just sort of on my own. And that way we blocked it out such that when I hit certain marks, certain body parts would begin to fail. And that way when we turned the scene around and came backwards, I was able to have those body parts come back into use in reverse order. And that was a lot of fun because we shot that entire sequence completely out of order. So we shot the beginning of the scene first, and then we shot the end of the scene. And then we shot the second part and the second to last part. And then we had to do, so it was a lot to keep in there, but it was a lot of fun to do as well.
And I will say it was incredibly cold that night. It was, all that breath, it looks amazing. And Zach did a great job kind of capturing that, but it was freezing.
Yeah, no Titanic breath. It was
Yeah, no,
And
that
Keith
was
says,
all
do
real.
it again, do it again.
Do it again. Let's keep doing it.
Other questions in the audience? Yes, right over there.
So in the Jewish tradition, what is the consequence of not observing the vigil, and did that affect the script at all?
In the Jewish tradition, what is the consequence of not observing a vigil?
Yeah, so the vigil is an interesting and ancient tradition, essentially. The soul, when someone dies, they need to be buried quite quickly. The soul is kind of hovering just above the body there. And when it is in soil, the body can then ascend. The soul can ascend. And the vigil was seen as this way of protecting the soul as it's there in kind of a very fragile and sensitive state. There are actually a lot of rules around how the shomer is supposed to do the vigil. It's not as though the house will burn down if the vigil is broken, but ideally it's something that the community is doing. It's seen more today, less than ancient times, seen more today as a very sort of natural part of mourning and a way for the community to come together and observe this ritual, which is seen as just as important ritual as birth, is kind of the leaving, and that the community's there helping somebody depart.
In your research, did you ever encounter a story or incident about a vigil gone wrong in a similar fashion as this film?
So the kind of genesis of this was when I was doing my graduate work, and I was in a Orthodox synagogue, and I had heard two older men behind me talking about a shomer who had left. And they didn't say why, but of course I was like, oh, this is interesting. Why would a shomer leave? Like, this is an important job, because he was scared. What was he scared of? And so it just kind of started from there.
One more question. We have room for, yes, right over there.
How did you pick the song to use at the end and also the other texts earlier?
Yeah, so the
Questions
songs
about the music choices in the film. Sorry, just to repeat.
Yeah, no, the music choices. So, the first song, the song that Dave listens to, I listened to, that's Trevor Something is the name of the musician, kind of a synthwave artist, and I was listening to it while I was writing the script, and putting myself in Dave's head, I was like, that's what he's gonna listen to. Ralph, you want to talk about the end song?
Yeah, sure. The end song is a song called Ashrei. It's by a Hasidic band in Brooklyn called Zusha. And I was actually left alone in the edit one day. I don't know how that happened.
He just snuck it in there.
And I was like, to Brett, let's put in this song and see what it sounds like. And then we dropped it in to have there's like a drop of the song to be when the movie cuts to black. And then where the song ended up starting was after the last line of dialogue. So it just kind of fit perfectly, and I thought it'd be nice to end the movie with a Jewish song.
Yeah, we like the feel of it. I mean, this is a cool band. These are like Hasidic hipsters. If you ever want to check them out, they're pretty cool.
Technically, the term is neo-Hasidic.
Neo-Hasidic.
What was your follow-up?
Sorry, Tehillim, not song. Tehillim, song.
Oh, psalm. Sorry. That's my fault.
Here we are talking all about the songs. No, the Psalms. Right, these are the Psalms that are in the Tehillim, the book that he uses. These are the traditional Shomer ones. So it's, I can't even remember exactly which numbers they are.
91.
91? Anyway, they're supposed to be repeated, and ideally this is said throughout the vigil, and typically, there's changing of the guard and multiple people sit the vigil, but it is true that in the Hasidic community there are Shomers who do this for a living. That was another interesting angle.
Yeah, but this
Why
91.
didn't you translate them?
Oh.
We decided just to translate the Yiddish. We wanted to keep the Hebrew untranslated. And, for me, huge fan of The Exorcist. I thought, they don't translate that Latin. I don't know what is going on. So I thought it'd be interesting if the exorcism sort of scene and, when he's putting on, to fill in that it was, I thought everyone would just get it. They'll get what's happening here in terms of ritual, and you don't necessarily need to know exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, but the chapter 91 is talking about, you could look it up in Psalm. Look, it talks about putting away the
Yeah.
Look it up, 91. One more question right there. It was about how you prepared for your scary sequence on the phone.
I'm not scary. I had a very good director, Keith Thomas. And he brought out the scariest in me.
Well, please, put your hands together for the vigil. And remember to vote for the film, TIFF.net/vote. Tomorrow night is the 20th century. Thank you.
And it's also my sister's birthday today, and she came out from New York.